Africa's biggest discovery. The market was here all along. For decades, the global economy followed a familiar pattern. Raw materials flowed out of Africa. Manufactured goods flowed back in. Trade routes connected African economies to markets in Europe, North America, and Asia. Success often depended on access to distant customers. But what happens when one of those major markets suddenly becomes more difficult to access? And what happens when countries decide that the best response is not confrontation, but adaptation? That question is becoming increasingly important for South Africa, Africa's most industrialized economy. In recent months, South Africa has found itself navigating growing trade tensions with the United States. After the introduction of a 30% tariff on South African imports, Washington is now considering an additional 12.5% tariff on goods from several countries, citing concerns about forced labor in global supply chains. The proposed measures have raised concerns among businesses, exporters, and policymakers. But rather than responding with retaliatory tariffs, South Africa is pursuing a different strategy. It is defending its position through diplomacy, while simultaneously strengthening economic partnerships across Africa itself. And in many ways, that approach reflects a much larger trend unfolding across the continent. As global trade becomes more uncertain, African countries are increasingly looking inward, building regional partnerships, strengthening continental trade networks, and searching for new paths to economic growth. This is the story of how South Africa and other African nations are adapting to a changing global economy, and why the future of African trade may increasingly depend on Africa itself. The latest challenge emerged after the United States proposed additional trade penalties, targeting countries linked to alleged forced labor concerns. South Africa strongly rejected the allegations. Government officials argued that the country already maintains extensive legal protections against forced labor, human trafficking, and exploitative labor practices. Officials requested evidence from Washington supporting the claims and emphasized that South Africa's labor framework complies with international standards. For Pretoria, the stakes are significant. The United States remains one of South Africa's most important export destinations. In 2024 alone, South Africa exported billions of dollars worth of products to the American market. These exports include precious metals, machinery, agricultural products, vehicles, and automotive components. Many of these industries are deeply connected to employment and economic growth. The automotive sector alone contributes roughly 5% of South Africa's gross domestic product and supports more than 100,000 direct manufacturing jobs. In a country where unemployment remains stubbornly high, any disruption to export markets carries serious consequences. Factories depend on overseas demand. Farmers depend on foreign buyers. Manufacturers depend on stable trade relationships. When tariffs increase, costs rise. When costs rise, competitiveness declines. And when competitiveness declines, jobs can be placed at risk. This explains why South Africa is treating the issue so seriously. Yet despite the economic pressure, the government has largely avoided threatening retaliation. Instead, officials have chosen negotiation, consultation, and diplomatic engagement. At first glance, that approach may appear cautious, but there are practical reasons behind it. Trade disputes can quickly become costly for everyone involved. Retaliatory tariffs often create cycles of escalation that damage businesses on both sides. For South Africa, preserving long-term market access may be more valuable than scoring short-term political victories. Diplomacy also allows the country to present itself as a predictable and reliable trading partner. That reputation matters when governments are competing for foreign investment. Investors generally prefer stability. They prefer predictable regulations. And they prefer countries that manage disputes through established institutions rather than economic confrontation. Yet diplomacy is only one part of South Africa's response. At the very same time that Pretoria is engaging Washington, it is also pursuing a broader strategy aimed at reducing vulnerability to external shocks. That strategy involves diversification. The basic idea is simple. The more markets a country can access, the less dependent it becomes on any single partner. If one market becomes difficult, others can help absorb the impact. This principle is increasingly shaping economic policy across Africa. For decades, many African economies relied heavily on exporting raw materials to destinations outside the continent. Colonial trade patterns often reinforced these relationships. Railways, ports, and infrastructure were frequently designed to move resources from mines and farms to overseas markets. As a result, trade between African countries remains surprisingly low. Even today, many African nations trade more with distant regions than with their immediate neighbors. That reality has long frustrated policymakers. Africa is home to more than 1 billion people. It possesses enormous natural resources. Its population is among the youngest in the world, and its urban centers continue to expand rapidly. Yet many economists argue that the continent has not fully captured the benefits of regional commerce. This is one of the reasons the African Continental Free Trade Area, commonly known as AfCFTA, has attracted so much attention. The initiative seeks to create a single continental market by reducing trade barriers and encouraging greater economic integration. Supporters believe it has the potential to transform how African businesses operate. Instead of viewing national borders as obstacles, companies could gain access to a much larger customer base, stretching across the continent. A manufacturer in South Africa could more easily sell products in Kenya. A business in Ghana could expand into East Africa. Supply chains could become more interconnected, investment could flow more efficiently, and economic growth could become less dependent on demand from outside the continent. These ambitions remain a work in progress, but recent developments suggest that governments are increasingly taking practical steps toward that vision. One example emerged during the state visit of Kenyan President William Ruto to South Africa. During the visit, the two countries signed 6 new cooperation agreements aimed at strengthening economic ties and improving regional integration. On the surface, some of these agreements may sound technical, but their potential impact could be significant. One agreement focuses on standardization, technical regulations, and conformity assessments. Those terms may not generate headlines, yet they influence whether goods move smoothly across borders or become trapped in costly administrative delays. Different regulations often create hidden barriers to trade. Businesses must meet multiple requirements, complete additional paperwork, and navigate different approval processes. By coordinating standards, countries can reduce these obstacles and make trade more efficient. Another agreement focuses on maritime cooperation. Shipping remains one of the most important components of international commerce. Improved maritime connections between East and Southern Africa could strengthen logistics networks, reduce transportation costs, and help businesses reach new markets. Efficient transportation is often the difference between profitable trade and missed opportunities. The agreements also include cooperation on technical and vocational education. This reflects another important reality. Economic growth depends not only on infrastructure but also on people. Industries are evolving rapidly. New technologies are changing labor markets. Countries that invest in workforce development may be better positioned to compete in emerging sectors. Skills training helps prepare workers for those changes. The partnership between South Africa and Kenya also extends beyond economics. Additional agreements cover gender equality, arts and culture, and sports cooperation. These initiatives recognize that regional integration is not solely about goods and services. It is also about relationships, institutions, and shared development goals. Together, the 6 agreements bring the total number of bilateral instruments between South Africa and Kenya to 34. That number reflects the growing importance of one of Africa's most significant economic partnerships. But the story extends beyond these 2 countries. Across the continent, governments are increasingly pursuing similar strategies. New transport corridors are being developed. Cross-border infrastructure projects are expanding. Digital payment systems are improving. Regional organizations are promoting regulatory cooperation, and businesses are exploring opportunities in neighboring markets. These efforts share a common objective: reducing dependence on any single external partner. This does not mean Africa is turning away from the rest of the world. Far from it. The continent continues to strengthen relationships with major global economies. Trade with the United States remains important. Europe remains a major partner. China continues to invest heavily across Africa. India is expanding its economic engagement. Middle Eastern investors are increasing their presence. Rather than choosing one partner over another, many African governments appear to be pursuing a strategy of balance. The goal is diversification. A diversified economy is generally more resilient. If demand weakens in one region, opportunities may exist elsewhere. If geopolitical tensions affect one relationship, others can provide alternatives. This approach is becoming increasingly relevant in an era marked by growing global uncertainty. Trade disputes have become more common. Supply chains have been disrupted by pandemics, conflicts, and geopolitical competition. Governments around the world are reassessing economic dependencies. African countries are doing the same. South Africa's current situation illustrates this broader shift. Faced with trade pressure from an important partner, the country is not simply reacting to the immediate challenge. It is also investing in longer-term resilience. Defending access to the U.S. market remains important, but so does expanding opportunities elsewhere. This dual-track strategy may become increasingly common across the continent. Engage globally, integrate regionally, diversify economically, build resilience. These principles are beginning to shape a new chapter in Africa's economic development. Whether they succeed remains uncertain. Significant challenges remain. Infrastructure gaps still exist. Trade barriers have not disappeared. Political differences sometimes complicate regional cooperation, and implementation often proves more difficult than signing agreements. Yet momentum appears to be building. The logic behind greater regional integration is becoming harder to ignore. A larger market creates larger opportunities. Stronger connections create greater flexibility, and greater flexibility can help countries navigate an increasingly unpredictable world. The future of African trade may not be determined solely in Washington, Beijing, Brussels, or New Delhi. Increasingly, it may also be shaped in Pretoria, Nairobi, Lagos, Accra, Kigali, Addis Ababa, and countless other African cities working to build stronger economic connections with one another. South Africa's response to rising trade tensions offers a glimpse into that future. A future where diplomacy remains important. A future where diversification becomes essential. And a future where African countries seek growth not only through global partnerships, but through deeper cooperation with each other. As global trade patterns continue to evolve, one question remains. Can Africa transform its vast potential into a truly integrated economic powerhouse? The answer will help shape not only the continent's future, but the future of global commerce itself. This is Sal Pierce signing off from Vlog End, where we work to uncover the true stories of Africa and the world. Thank you for watching. If this deep dive challenged your thinking and helped you see the complex forces shaping Africa more clearly, please consider subscribing. It helps us continue this work and ensures you never miss what comes next. We truly appreciate your support.